When you're one of the big dogs in college football, and when you wear that U on your helmet, you're going to get everybody's best game. And when you go into somebody else's house and you play against a team that is really, really well coached, you're going to have a battle on your hands. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. The Cam Ward experience, number 10, the U versus Georgia Tech.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, if I'd told you that the Canes would give up 28 points and lose the game, you probably would have told me to take a hike. But that's exactly what happened. The U went into Atlanta, Georgia with a 9-0 record and went back to Coral Gables later on that night with a 9-1 mark. 28-23 was the final score. The Canes have a lot of things that they need to get squared up and reset for this following game. And now it becomes a win out for the rest of the season, including the ACC championship game to get to the 12-team playoff. And as always, we're going to start things off with Cam Ward. Cam was 25 for 39 for 348 yards and 3 touchdowns. He didn't throw any interceptions. Those are really solid numbers for him, but for most of the game, I just didn't think he ever got into a consistent rhythm or a consistent tempo. And I'm going to give you my reasons for that as we go in today's show. Just like last week, he made some great throws. And just like last week, he also missed some open receivers. And just like last week and for the first 9 games of the season, he didn't see some open guys. And again, we're going to talk about this as we go, but I've seen a lot of chatter on X after the game where people are saying, that was on Cam. He played a poor game. Blah, 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 blah. That is the furthest thing from the truth. I think that there are a whole bunch of Division I quarterbacks that would take his statistics and his numbers and his performance in that game Saturday. So, while it wasn't a wow game, it was definitely solid. And let's talk about Cam Ward a little bit more in depth here. He played in spurts. And what I mean by that was, he just never got into a good rhythm. And when I say spurts, there were times where for 3 or 4 throws in a row, he had the good feet, he had the good arm slot, he had the good rhythm and tempo on his throws, and he put the ball right on guys. But that wasn't a consistent performance throughout the day. Now, for once this year, I don't think that pass protection was the issue for the Canes. Their offensive line is getting better week by week in their protection. I think one of the problems that Cam Ward had, he was on the sideline for long stretches of time, and that has a tendency to get you out of rhythm. And an example of that was the 17-play, 11-minute drive that Georgia Tech had. They scored a touchdown to put them up 14-10 for 17 plays and for 11 minutes. And that's 11 minutes of game time, with all the other time increments that go on throughout the course of an 11-minute drive. He's on the sideline for a long time. 14, 15 minutes or so. And, when you want to get on the field and do your thing, get off the field, let the defense get the ball back for you, get back out there, stay in the groove. And that just didn't happen consistently Saturday. His misses were frustrating. He missed Restrepo on a seam vertical or a semi-bender in the game that could have been a huge play, and Xavier was wide open. Cam wasn't rushed, didn't have anybody in his face, and he just misfired on it. But I think the more frustrating misses for me with Cam Ward on Saturday were the receivers that he didn't throw to that were open. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. There was a 4th and 5 in the second quarter. 4th and 5, they went for it, and they ran mesh, okay? Georgia Tech sat in a zone, and Restrepo ran the mesh with another receiver and did a hell of a job of sitting down in grass. And you tell your mesh guys, as soon as they cross and make the mesh happen, they're going to sit down in the first patch of grass and then just shuffle, keeping your shoulders square to the quarterback, and just shuffle away from that nearest defender and give Cam Ward that open shoulder to throw to. And that's exactly what Restrepo did. Now, they showed the play from the press box, from the side view, but then they showed the replay from the end zone camera. So it was behind Cam Ward, so you could see exactly what he was looking at. All right. And on that mesh, you've got from tackle to tackle. That's what we call the box. And that's usually about, anywhere from, I would say, 6 to maybe 8 yards wide. And everything inside of that, those two tackles, that's called the box. And those mesh guys are usually sitting in that box area. So Cam Ward, when he took his drop, you could see that his view, his vision, he's able to see in his peripheral. He can see guys sitting in grass, and there is Restrepo, and he's wide ass open. And all Cam had to do was put it on the shoulder away from the inside linebacker, and that's catch and run, and they've got a first down. Okay. He doesn't throw the ball, and a wasted opportunity. They don't pick up the first down. They lose possession. Okay. And then the other one with 52 seconds to go in the game, and they need a completion. Okay. They run a deep dig route, and they ran it out of 2 backs. Okay. Now the 2 backs released inside the tackles and ran flat routes. And those routes are designed to open up the defense, potentially pull up defenders, and open that thing up for the dig to come in the back door. And that's exactly what happened. And for whatever reason, Cam didn't deliver the ball on that dig route. I got to think, I'm not in their quarterback room, but I got to think on that play that dig route is his first read. And it opened up really nice, and here comes the dig, and it wasn't thrown because we had a knock him off platform. He gets hit from behind, fumbles the ball, and that was it. That was the ball game. Okay, enough of that negative stuff. Let's talk about Cam Ward's best throws. His best throw of the night, according to me, was the fade route touchdown he threw to Horton. It was in the third quarter, and he threw a dime. Threw a nice little 2, nice soft ball, tight spiral. He put it right exactly where it needed to go. That was a hell of a throw, and that was Cam's best throw of the night. His second best throw was the unbelievable anticipation strike to Arroyo for the first touchdown of the game. I've said this about Magic Johnson when he played, for the Lakers back in the day. And I've also said it recently about Caitlin Clark when I'm talking to my wife or anybody else who will listen to me. And that is, when you're playing basketball with guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, or women like Caitlin Clark, you better have your head on a swivel when they have the rock, because that ball is coming when you're open. And so on this play, the touchdown throw to Arroyo, Miami runs motion, and the motion screwed up Georgia Tech's coverage. And they had confusion, just real quick confusion, where a couple guys sort of froze on the routes, and Arroyo popped open. Now, Cam, he's seeing this happen, and he's seeing that develop in front of him, and he cut loose with the ball. And fortunately, Arroyo snapped his head around, and because the throw was such a dime, it's like it's stuck on Arroyo's breastplate of his shoulder pads. If that had been anywhere else on his body, it would have been an incomplete pass, because I think it sort of surprised him. But that was a hell of a throw and great anticipation by Cam Ward. Okay, and then his third best throw was the sail route that he threw to Sam Brown Jr. in the first quarter. This one was a beauty. This is textbook quarterback 101 play. All right. They run a sail route, which is a deep out route to Brown on the left side. Georgia Tech brings a safety blitz from deep. Okay. The protection for the Canes, they didn't pick it up. And that guy had a 15-yard wind sprint to Cam Ward. Cam took his drop. You know, as a QB, when you're looking at that sail route and you're anticipating throwing it, you can sense with your peripheral vision, you can sense that there's a guy that is running full speed right at you. He took his drop and delivered an absolute strike, and that safety blew his ass up. And you know what? That's what Cam Ward's job is, right? Throw the ball, deliver the ball, take a hit. Deliver the ball, take a hit. You know you're going to get popped. Don't allow that to affect your accuracy or the type of throw that you make. Do your job, take a hit, and that's exactly what happened. So those were his three best throws of the game, I thought. Okay, he did a nice job of not forcing throws, and he also did a nice job of checking the ball down. I still say with Cam Ward to throw more quick game every single time. And it doesn't matter what the route is. You know, before in my other shows, I've said slant routes are like automatic for him. But anytime they run quick game, slants, stick routes, option routes, anything that is bang, bang, you know, a 5 or 6 yard route, it's pitch and catch for the Canes. They need to do it more. I don't think they do it enough. I think he is at his best rhythm and tempo when they're incorporating his skill set with their quick game passing concepts. I also like it when they go quick game and put it in with tempo. I think Cam Ward is a better quarterback when he gets up on the ball, they snap it. They run the play, whether it's a run play or a pass, they're back up on the ball, they snap it, and they go again. I just think that he thrives more in that environment. Okay, now, with that being said, if your defense is having a hard time getting off the field, it's a tough situation when you go out there offensively, and if you drop a ball, you miss some throws, you get stuffed in the running game and you're going tempo and not executing. And now your offense is 3 and out and your defense has to come back on the field. So there's kind of a fine line that Miami's walking with this. But, you know, when they execute on offense, it really doesn't matter what the defense does. That's my opinion. And I'm going to live with that. Okay. The bottom line with Cam Ward is he needs to see receivers consistently, and he needs to complete easy passes. And yeah, we're being picky. I'm being picky. You know, he's at an elite level. And when you play at that level, there's high expectations. You know, if you ask him, I'm sure he would say the same thing. But Cam Ward played a damn solid game Saturday against Georgia Tech. Okay, here we go with some random thoughts on the game. Okay, the all orange uni look. Best look of the year. All right. I'm a traditional uniform guy. I like the all green ones last week. The all orange, I think, was complete fire. No pun intended. And pretty sweet look. Okay. As I said in the intro, the Canes are the hunted. All right. They are everybody's big game. Georgia Tech came out of the gates focused, fired up, and they executed. All right. They hit the Canes in the mouth, and this can't be a surprise for Miami. All right. They're going to get everybody's best game. Okay. The defense is what it is, guys. The defense is what it is. The secondary struggles, you know, the defensive line has struggled a little bit as of late, but that talented offensive team has got to execute consistently. Mario Cristobal said exactly that walking off the field at halftime. You know, you got one of those obnoxious reporters sticking a microphone in his face. Yeah, what do you got to do, coach? He said it perfectly. We need to execute our scheme. Enough said. When the offense does that, with the talent that they have and the best quarterback in college football pulling the trigger for them, that's going to overcome a whole bunch of issues with the defense. Saturday, they didn't do that. And as I said earlier, the pass protection wasn't, I don't think, an issue for Miami. Here's what I think hurt them in this game. Now, about 3 weeks ago, I said that they were going to continue to see man coverage for the rest of the year until they can prove that they can consistently execute and hurt it. All right. Georgia Tech basically manned them up on Saturday. And here's where the problem comes in. And I talked about this last week. The two outside receivers for the Canes cannot hurt cornerbacks by beating their ass on verticals or deep post routes when they're getting manned up. They just can't do it. And so what Georgia Tech did is they played two safeties high a lot of times. And on the snap of the ball, those guys, if they thought it was run, they were screaming downhill to where it was basically a cover zero look. And they just said the two corners on the outside are going to take those two guys, Horton and George, out of the game. We don't have to worry about those guys. And until Miami shows that they can hurt somebody by taking the top off the coverage and actually completing deep balls against the corners, they're going to continue to get it. And I think that hurt them on Saturday. The inability for those guys to win in a man-to-man matchup when defensively they're taking away the rest of the Canes' weapons and they can't hurt them. They can't hurt that singled up man coverage on the outside. Okay, now you've also got this scenario, which was really driving me crazy watching this the other day on my laptop. They came up with the corners and got in the face of George and Horton press man, and they took those two safeties and they played them not only inside the hash marks, but they played them up like 8 yards off the ball. You have got to be able to run a vertical route on the outside or a deep post and make a play. And this should be a situation, if they've got threats out there, where you call the play, you line up, and Shannon Dawson, whoever he's got up there in the booth that he's talking to on the headsets, going, "Coach, the safeties are walked way down or the safeties are playing way inside the hash marks. It's one-on-one out there." And you just kill the play. You signal in vertical to the wideouts and Cam. You get the protection set up. Take your drop. Have Cam pick a winner, outside winner. Lay it up with a 3 and let the guy go get it. They have to have the ability to do that. You cannot allow the defense to dictate and cheat safeties down or play them way inside the hash mark and allow those cornerbacks just to do their thing and lock down your outside receivers. And it's not just a speed issue with Horton and George. They do a horrible job of getting rid of hands. Horton ran 3 or 4 routes against Duke where he allowed the cornerback, as he's running by him or attempting to run by him, allowed the cornerback to take his hand and basically pull, grab, rest, nudge, push an arm of Horton's. And it was like he was trying to run his route with a dead arm. In other words, he was pumping his arm with the arm that was away from the cornerback. This one, he was just allowing that guy to do whatever he wanted to do. As an outside receiver, any receiver, but these two guys, Horton and George, they've got to chop hands, slap hands, get rid of hands so that they can run full speed using both arms. All right. And I just think they do a lousy job of that. They allow the cornerbacks to manhandle them. Okay. And then, speaking of that and being able to run vertically by the cornerbacks, Dawson tried in this game one time to run a stutter and go vertical, and it was covered like a glove. And here's the thing with that. If you don't run hitch routes a lot in your quick game, then it makes no sense to run a fake hitch and vertical because the corner's not buying it and he didn't buy it. I think what they need to do is just work on the fact that George and Horton need to get rid of hands, run great releases, and go full freaking speed and beat guys vertically. Okay, they need to get the ball to Restrepo more. There's no other way to say it. He's their best receiver. Okay, we're not talking about 40 speed. We're not talking about explosion. We're not talking about vertical jump. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're talking about who gets open the best consistently and then has great hands. But who runs great routes and gets open? That's number 7. They got to get the ball to him more. Remember last week I talked about the announcer Jesse Palmer saying, you've got to get the ball in the hands of your best players. And Restrepo is their best receiver. Get him the ball. Okay, speaking of him, that wheel route that Cam threw to him for a touchdown, that was the exact same play that they ran against Louisville a couple weeks back where Restrepo caught the wheel route and ran it down to the 2-yard line. Then they threw the 2-yard slant on the next play for the touchdown. It was exactly the same, including the protection and how they got Cam out of the pocket. So he started to drop, and then he did a half roll to get out of the bullshit in the pocket and buy himself a little bit more time on what they consider a slower developing route. It was a great throw. And with Restrepo, watch how he runs the out part of this out and up, the wheel route. If you want to get covered on a wheel route, run the out route to where it looks like you're getting ready to turn it up. Body language, leaning, you're drifting upfield, even though you're breaking it on the out, you're drifting upfield and you're kind of showing that you're going to do it. These DBs are going, bullshit, that's not an out route. When you watch Restrepo run this, when he breaks it to the out, he breaks it flat and he sells it. Body language, the angle. And that's what allows that DB to come flying up on what he thinks is an out route, and then it's all over with. So again, he's a technician. You need to get the ball to him way more often. Okay, this was a hell of a chess match between Shannon Dawson and the defensive coordinator for Georgia Tech. So if you noticed in this game, every time Miami killed a play and looked to the sideline to change the play, Georgia Tech's defense looked to the sideline and changed the defense. So it was a chess match. Okay, Georgia Tech's game plan was really simple. It was to keep Miami's offense on the sideline. Well, how do you do that? You run the ball, but not only run the ball, you've got to get yardage when you run the ball. So if you can pick up 4 yards every time you snap the ball and run it, 3 of those and you got a first down. You take your time in between plays. Okay, the clock's running. You stay in the huddle. You take your time. Miami's offense is on the sideline, and it's just, and of course they would throw in some jet sweeps just for kicks because those were big plays just about every time they ran them. But that's the best way to effectively stop a great offense is keep them on the sideline. And Georgia Tech was able to do that. That was their strategy coming in. That's what they were going to do. That 11-minute drive, that 17-play drive, that was a killer, man. You can't chalk it up more perfect than that for Georgia Tech's team. Okay, the Canes continue what we talked about last week, and that is when they make a good gain or a big gain, whether it's run or pass, they're right up on the ball with tempo and they're running downhill run. They did it again Saturday against Georgia Tech, and it was really, really effective. Okay, the officials missed 3 brutally blatant holding calls against Georgia Tech. 2 of them were on Miami's defensive ends who were grabbed a handful of jersey stretching the jersey, obvious on outside runs where the DN was just immobilized with an obvious hold. That happened twice with no call. And then the one I talked about earlier where Horton was held and a full fistful of his jersey on the top of his shoulder pad for the last 15 yards of a vertical route, no call. Okay, the Hurricanes cannot run perimeter screens where they rely on their offensive linemen to get out in front of it. But when you're asking an offensive lineman to flash pass pro and then run out to the curl or the flat to block guys, Miami's O-line, they don't have the foot speed to do it. And so the 2 or 3 times that they ran those screens in the game, the screen receiver was left out there, naked. He had no blocking, and it was, unblocked defensive guys making plays on him. It was obvious that they had had some rain in the area. I'm not sure if it was in the morning or, early in the morning hours, but the turf just looked like it was a little damp. And I'm telling you, there was like 3 or 4 plays where guys were this close to blowing their knees out. And I'm talking about when you're running, this is a non-contact deal, you're running and you go to make a cut and you're leaning and your foot slips just slightly underneath you and you got your weight distribution just a little off. And that's when ACLs snap. And there were, 3 or 4 of those where when I was watching in real time, I'm like, oh, geez. And so that's a kind of a dangerous situation there. Okay. And then the 2-point play that they ran, when the defense lines up in a 4-1 double ghost cover 0, where they can bring 7 guys, you can't run a slow developing pass scheme. It's got to be a quick hitter. That's exactly what happened Saturday. 4-1 double ghost cover 0. They brought 7, which means 1 guy's coming unblocked. 6-man protection, 1 guy's coming unblocked. And the route took too long to happen. Boom. Cam's jacked, he's hit, and it's a no-go. And so that's got to be really, really fast, or they got to hot release the back, and get it to him to take advantage of that unblocked guy coming. But the play took way, way, way too long. Okay, head scratcher. Come down to the 2-minute warning. You got the timeout. It's 4th down. Georgia Tech's going to punt. Timeout. Miami's on the sideline. They come out of the 2-minute timeout. They line up for punt return, and Cristobal goes sprinting down the sideline to call timeout before they can snap the ball. Now, the announcers were going, yeah, I think Mario sensed that they were running a fake. I don't think that was the deal. I think they had the wrong personnel on the field, because after he called timeout, he turned his eyes down the sideline and was barking at one of his assistant coaches. So the fact that you go to the sideline on a timeout and you don't get the right personnel in the game after the timeout and you have to burn another timeout, that's not good. Okay, some thoughts on the defense. Earlier I said, the secondary struggles. And the defensive line, as of late, has kind of not shown up. Earlier in the season, when Bain came back from the injury, around the Cal game maybe, I thought that they were looking pretty good. I thought that they disrupted some stuff, made some plays, and they've really sort of disappeared a little bit. You look back at that Duke game, and that's another thing that I edited out last week in the podcast that I talked about. For that entire Duke game, I didn't hear the same defensive line names that I had heard the first part of the season until the 4th quarter. And they started making plays. Well, it was the same deal on Saturday against Georgia Tech. Those defensive linemen, they've got to step up and make some plays. Now, I'm just an old offensive coordinator, but I do know this. First, if you don't maintain gap control, you're going to have problems stopping the run game. If you don't maintain C gap control, and that's outside the tackle, that's C gap. B gap is in between the tackle and the guard, and A gap is in between the guard and the center. If you give up C gap, you don't have anybody in C gap with your D line, linebacker, safety, whatever, you're going to give up a lot of yards. Now, I tweeted this out in the first quarter of the game Saturday. I said, if Miami's defensive ends continue to go inside to B gap and they've got nobody showing up to C gap, Georgia Tech's going to run for 500 yards. Okay. Now, secondly, you cannot even come close to stopping a jet sweep if you're going to try to do it with a defensive end or an outside linebacker on the line of scrimmage, flat-footing it when the ball is handed off to the jet receiver. It's not going to happen. And so time and time again, those guys that they were assigning to stop the jet sweep were trying to do it from a flat-footed position. The jet sweep guy, the receiver, when he got the handoff, he was going full speed. He's going to run right by those guys, and that's exactly what happened. You got to rotate safeties down. You got to get guys moving. You see that motion coming and you see that jet sweep coming. You've got to get somebody on the move with the right angles to make a play on that ball carrier. You can't do it with guys that are flat-footing it because they're just going to watch him run right by him. Okay. Now, I've always held this philosophy when it comes to defense versus offense, and that is defensively, take away what the offense does best and make them beat you with their second best offensive attack. So in this game here, Georgia Tech is going to run the ball. Can't sit back in two safeties high. Bring those safeties down, get more guys involved in the running game, and make them beat you throwing the football. That's not what Georgia Tech wanted to do. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, coach, Miami's secondary is so suspect that if they threw the ball, they were going to kill them there too. Maybe so. But you allow them to continually run the ball up your tailpipe. All right. Because that's what they want to do. And that's what they're best at. Take it away. Make them beat you with their second best attack. And that never happened on Saturday. All right, guys. The beautiful lesson that sports teaches us is that you get up when you get knocked on your ass. And it also teaches you, and this is the biggest one, is how to handle adversity. Okay. When something happens that you don't like, and that definitely happened Saturday to the Canes, how are they going to handle it? Championship teams respond to losses. And so this next game for the U is going to be very, very interesting. It's going to tell, I think, the Canes fans a lot about what this team is made of. My guess is that Mario, his staff, and Cam Ward, and the handful of the other alphas in that locker room are making that clear this week in practice. Okay, if you enjoyed today's podcast, hit that like button. That really helps me out. Continue to pass the word around. Subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate the support. And drop me a comment below. Let me know what you thought of the Georgia Tech loss, what you see moving forward for Miami, and how you thought Cam Ward did in this game. Okay, and be on the lookout for another podcast that I've got coming out this week where I'm going to do a quick one on the thinning of the herd with college quarterbacks this year. You know, before the season started, I talked about a list of, 8 guys that were potentially elite guys or considered to be big time guys. And after 9 or 10 games now, you've had a thinning of the herd, and there are a couple of guys that have separated themselves from the rest, and there are definitely some guys that were up at the higher levels that have fallen. So I'm going to give you my take on who I think the top quarterbacks are in college football after week 10 in the season. So be on the lookout for that. All right, this is QB Unfiltered, and remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.